Hey, Gina, how's it going?
Well, how are you?
I'm doing well. I like the setup over there. It looks nice. I feel calm already.
Yes, well, that's my calm and happy place to come to for sure.
Yeah, right. My wife and I have taken a few classes there before, and we've really enjoyed it. Hopefully, when things go back to normal sometime soon, we'll be able to make it there.
And that's the prayer. The prayer is
Yeah,
that there will be some kind of normal. So
e-
I'm holding down
exactly.
in the meantime, doing the online thing. So it's been
Yeah, yeah, and we'll definitely get into that in a little bit. I actually wanted to ask you first. This is just something I've been doing with most of the business owners. Is just tell us. I like to hear it from your words better. Like just what Barefoot Yoga is all about, and like how you got started in the yoga business.
sure. So it's been 8 years. I actually just passed my 8-year anniversary from when I opened
Wow,
up over
congrats.
Fourth Avenue. Yeah, back in 2012. And I started teaching yoga. Let's see, it was about 5 years before that. So
Mhm.
I just keep going backwards in time. Like when I first was working as a graphic designer for a big publishing company, and I had never done yoga before, and I had never had any access to anything. And after like probably 15 people had suggested that I try yoga for my anger management, it was like, maybe I should, look into this a little bit. And we had a corporate program at Penguin Publishing where I worked, where a yoga teacher would come in once a week and they would clear out a conference room. And that's
Oh, cool.
how, my yoga journey began, was like in this room with, people from my job. And um,
Yeah.
it was really eye-opening because I had never felt any connection to my body before, and I'd never felt any connection to anything like wellness related. I was like probably so many people. I ate
Mhm.
terribly, and I smoked a lot, and I drank a lot, and I was eating garbage, and I was like disconnected, and I had a lot of um, just a lot of anger issues. And I was really like, yoga really transformed me in that period of time. And it was also that it helped me get through a really difficult pregnancy, a really high risk pregnancy that I was like completely despondent and couldn't figure out how to manage it. And it was my yoga teacher that introduced me to meditation. So
Mhm.
it was through that process of that. But then I went and became a yoga teacher after my second son was born. And then it was 5 years later of teaching locally and just being in studios. And I realized like I need to teach more, and there's not enough places to teach. And I really have a
Ah.
lot to share, specifically about wanting to address people's like psycho-emotional reality. And that it was the yoga that was what it helped me with the most. Like, yes, it got
Mhm.
my body in shape, helped me address the emotions that I was having. And like the philosophy of the practice really was what changed me like so deeply. So to open up a space, that was what I really like. I was going through a divorce. I had no money. I had no job. I had like nothing. And it was like to way in a prayer, like if you build
Yeah.
it, they will come. So it was 8 years ago that I started it with a loan, and I was teaching 7 days a week by myself, like
Wow. Wow.
of people or like, and sometimes to no people and sometimes to
Mhm.
two people. And I've just fully over the course of those years. And I moved into this location on Main Street across the street from Willy Nilly 4 years ago, because we had expanded and things were, my classes were doing really well. So it was nice to move into a bigger space and onto Main
Mhm.
Street, which was awesome. And I love Bayshore. I live in Islip, so it was like the perfect kind of commute, just like to be
Yep.
here and present for my kids. So I really just I was offering teacher trainings probably from the first year in. And yeah, I mean, I just love teaching the holistic practice. I love being able to teach the philosophy and the physical, and not just the physical practice, and making it really adaptable, because that was my biggest thing in the beginning, was that I didn't feel like I belonged there. I was like, I'm not a vegetarian. Like, I have all these habits.
Yep.
There's these flexy bendy people, and like I don't
Mhm.
belong here. And
Yeah. Yeah.
my saying, like, we all belong here. Everybody belongs in yoga. Everybody can find a way into this practice if you just like show up and are committed to the discipline, and then be patient with yourself and compassionate. So it was all of those things that kind of kept me going, through all those years. And also, it's like not without its challenge, obviously, like, being a small business owner, period, is challenging. And then being a parent and trying to balance that and, all of
Yeah.
this. So but it's been a journey, it's like
Yeah, for
yoga.
sure. It sounds like it. I mean, just the fact that, to me, it's so, and this is why I started the podcast. I find it so interesting, just different people's stories and journeys, how they got into the business, what risk they took. Did they get help from their family? Did they take out a loan like you and just, wing it and hope for the best and just do what they love, which is awesome. How scary was that for you? Like, well, I'm sure, I'm sure yoga
Yeah.
helped you a lot get through that, but
You
how
know,
scary was that whole moment?
well, it's funny that it's like, and there's like literally a spiritual practice, like you
Mhm.
go to the that scare you. So I was terrified, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, I'm terrified, so that means I should do it because I have no idea if this is going to work, and I don't really know if it's going to, and especially at that time, because I had been out of my old job as a graphic designer, I couldn't really go back to it. And I tried like finding a job, and there was like very little work. And I said, well, it's either try to go to work in Manhattan when I have two small children and I have no idea if that's going to work, or try this. And
Yeah.
I don't know, so I was terrified of failing and thinking that it wasn't going to work. And I just thought,
Mhm.
well, if I throw myself into it, I will just be able to I'll give it, if I am in the red within, oh, it takes 2 years to build any small business. If you can get through the first 2 years, then you've got somewhere. I'm like, all right, 2 years. I
Yep.
put that I had, every ounce of energy that I had, and it was
Good
a
for
lot.
you.
I had to ask for help from family sometimes, and that was really hard. And
Yeah.
public assistance sometimes, that was really hard. And because it's like I made everything that came in goes right to rent and right to utilities and right to everything else. So there's not a
Mhm.
lot left to go off of after that, and especially in the beginning. But it was a slow process, and I was scared, but I was also really committed. So I
Yeah.
just knew that no matter what, we all go through so many things every day that, and I try to keep perspective. I know a lot of people who were like, couldn't work or couldn't even do what I did. And
Yeah.
so I was grateful for the challenges that I had and the obstacles that I had to face, because at least I had the courage to take it on. It's like a lot of
Yeah.
people don't even have that. So I was really grateful, but
Yeah.
scared all the
I know.
time.
And that's what I tell a lot of people now that ask me like, hey, how's work going? Or, how you doing right now? And it's like, my response is that I'm just grateful. Like I'm still working here and there. My family's healthy. Like I don't have anything to be upset about. And I think having that positive mindset, really, really helps, no matter what business you're in. Um,
Yeah.
and I also wanted to say about
And
you
good
were, oh, what'd you say? Sorry. The volume just cut out. What'd you say?
venting buddies. Oh, yeah, just good venting buddies, because sometimes you just have to cry about it. It was like
Yeah.
positive attitude, and then some days it's like, okay, I just really need to cry. Talk to
Yes. Yes.
somebody
Yes.
who's with me, and it's like, yes, okay, it's gonna be okay. And
Yeah.
you gotta
Yeah.
get
And
it.
the part you said about not quitting, I think is awesome. It was funny. I was speaking with Jason Fenley not too long ago. He's a lawyer actually in Bayshore. And he told me the same thing because I just started my business a few months ago. And he's like, Sean, I'm going to tell you one thing. Just don't quit. Keep fighting. It's going to take a couple of years to get there, but don't give up. And if you have to take out money here and there, do what you have to do. So you're just reinforcing everything he said. So
I was like, okay,
yeah,
I am
yeah,
committed. You're committed when once you get committed to something.
that's it. That's it. Right.
Definitely,
So how, yeah, how have you guys been adapting to the whole COVID situation? Like, what have you guys been doing differently to, kind of keep everybody in the community involved and engaged with the practices?
Yeah, so I mean, right away, I within a couple of days of the shutdown, because it was actually our attendance had been dwindling pretty badly, from because everybody was so afraid, even from the end of February.
Hmm.
So they're just getting smaller and smaller, and I was like, okay, guys, what are we going to do? Like there was still a handful of people who were showing up, but it was like, oh, we'll clean more, we'll do whatever we have to do, and then like the official shutdown came through, and it was like, okay, I am either going to be completely belly up within and have to cancel all of these memberships, because we have a lot of people who have paid monthly to continue. And I said, I don't want to have to cancel. I don't want to have to refund and tell people, oh, we're just closing our doors. That's it. It's like, I don't want to leave, especially now. Everybody needs yoga. Like, this is the
Yeah.
time when we need the practice and the teachings even the most.
100%.
Certainly help everyone. So I figured out really quickly how to work with the Zoom thing. I was like, well, there's live streaming, right? I mean, somebody can do that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know who does live streaming. I didn't have anybody, to ask, because nobody else in the community had really done it yet. And I was kind of like picking the brains of other studio owners to try to figure it out. I saw that that Zoom was this thing that we could do. I said, okay, great. Let's figure it out. I canceled one class at the beginning, like, of our very full, first we had our full regular schedule, because I thought, well, okay, let's just see what happens. And then realized very quickly, okay, I can't maintain this regular schedule, and I can't maintain, paying all the teachers like regularly either. So we
Yeah.
kind of like went to a reduced schedule where I could do the live streaming one class, and then I recorded that class so that if you couldn't attend the live stream, that you could jump into and you could do the recording whenever you wanted to. So
Okay.
it was like both, because otherwise I was going to be like, I don't know who's going to jump in. I'm going to be teaching all these classes. I don't really know what's going to happen. So we did it as the live streaming with the recording. And so we still use, we have our regular software, and I figured out like how to use our login. Mind Body Online is the app that we use to manage our attendance and everything. So people had to figure that out real quick. I realized how afraid of technology, and they're like, what's Zoom? And like, they don't want to like
Yeah.
download it.
It's a learning curve for sure.
Gosh, like, what a learning curve. And I was like talking people to, like, through Facebook Messenger and through Instagram Messenger, like, here's how to do this. But then we get together, like, little, figuring it out. And I wrote this long email of like, click this link, download this thing, go over here, like, hey, figure it out, get your kids to help you. They probably know how to do it. It's like,
Yeah,
download,
right.
not that hard, like, convince, to get people through the technology barrier, right away was a bit of a challenge. But we've gotten, I teach now, I'm teaching 7 days a week. It's kind of like exactly the same as I was when I first opened 8 years ago,
Wow.
which is weird. And like,
Yeah.
whole of life, back to the
Deja vu, right?
teaching a whole bunch by myself in a studio. But at least now I have, this connection to the community, and they've been showing up, and my regulars are still regular. We don't have a ton of like new people coming in. It is really our close knit community who's been able to maintain, but we have, some stuff here and there, some new energy and people coming through. In fact, one of the, I don't know how she found me, but it was one of those like things that, oh, let's see what kind of yoga is available around here. She's the head nurse at Good Sam, and she had never classes before. I don't know like everybody's name individually. So when you see people like signing up for classes and I send out links to these recordings, like, I don't really know everyone personally who's on there. And
Yeah.
sent me an email to say that she had never been to the studio before in person. She can't make the live streams because of the timing, but the recordings have been really helping. And that was how she was able to get through and like talk to her staff and be, present with everyone there. And we have tons of nurses and first responders.
Oh, that's amazing.
Community. Yeah, so it's been really humbling, actually, and deeply so touching to see when people do come into the live stream. That's like so great. It's not just recordings. It's like I can see everybody, and they're saying, "Oh, hey, how are you?" And it's good to see you. And like,
How is the with the live stream? Just before I forget, like, because I know when I did the live class with my wife, it's very someone's walking around, how's your form, blah blah blah. Oh, Sean, adjust your lower back, stuff like that. How is it much more difficult to do it through the live stream, or you're still figuring out ways to do that?
there's no unfortunately that way, because I had to make a choice. There's a video presentation where I need to be able, for the visual learners, I need to stay on the
Yeah.
so that I have something, and I'm very careful with my verbal instructions. So
Mhm.
alignment is like, I've always been a big alignment teacher. So I'm very, very keyed into that, but the not
I
being able to
gotcha.
touch is like driving me crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't matter what I show, doesn't matter what I
Mhm.
say, it
Mhm.
doesn't get, so that's when I would go for the hands-on assistance or offering
Gotcha.
them. People kind of have to do that for themselves now, because otherwise I can't. I'd be sitting looking like this on the screen,
Yeah,
like,
that's true. That's true.
and if
Yeah.
the lighting's not right, and don't want to be on camera, so
Damn.
they've been turning it off. I know that they're there.
Okay. I see what you're
You know,
saying. Yeah, so it's good just to
plus it's
be really descriptive.
very descriptive, and then
Yep.
me doing the whole thing. I mean, I'm on that mat the entire time, just doing the
Mhm.
entire practice. So it's been good for me. I get to
Yeah,
my body and be in my practice every day, which is lovely. But I miss the people. I miss the
of
contact. I
course.
miss the touching. It's like,
Yeah. It'll come back soon. Hopefully. So I actually had one more question for you, and then I wanted to say thank you as well for joining the Facebook group that I started. It's funny, I gave some people a heads up that we were going to be talking, and I actually have some people ask me some questions. So if you don't mind, I'll ask you those questions. But the one I had for you first is from me. I do some jujitsu. I'm not one of the guys that goes every single day or twice a day. But for the people that do jujitsu or maybe some sort of mixed martial art, is there, because I know there's so many different yoga styles and techniques out there, is there any style that you think specifically helps someone that does jujitsu?
so the approach in that, I think that it's important to look at it from a balancing perspective. With
Mhm.
as with anything, like any form of yoga and any style of martial arts, that it depends on what you're looking to do in response to that. If you're like in jujitsu, especially, there's a lot of like fluid movement, right? So there's a lot of like the fast pace and the fluid movement, and
Yeah.
kind of working with, so like vinyasa yoga would probably be the style that you would naturally gravitate towards, because it's very fluid. There's a lot of movement. There's creative sequencing. They change it up. There's a lot of like flow. So it would probably be the most natural like transition from that.
Okay.
Where, but then on the flip side, if you
Mhm.
have the thing that you gravitate towards, usually we want our yoga practice to balance out our energy as well. So if you're constantly moving with like high impact and a lot of movement, then hatha yoga, or something where that's more stabilizing, where you're holding postures for longer periods of time to
Okay.
stabilize your joints, to build strength in a container, and to not move around as much, is
Mm.
actually very balancing to your nervous system from what it normally
Mm.
gets.
Okay.
So
So,
what you like is probably going to be the vinyasa style stuff. What you probably need more is probably more of the hatha based stuff. You can do
okay.
both and get the best of both worlds, because
Okay.
we
Awesome.
need the variety sometimes. It's like,
Yeah.
and I just feel like, and hatha yoga is what I teach, is very balancing to the constitution in general, because we deal with some heat building and some movement, and then longer holds and stabilizing and deep relaxation, so that you can just kind of like shut everything down and then integrate what you've done. So there's
Yeah.
definitely whereas like something that's more rigorous, like Ashtanga yoga is very rigorous and very like disciplined in its structure and the way that they work it. So if you're used to like kata like movements, or like karate, whereas like it's more
Mhm.
of structure and that discipline, then Ashtanga would probably fit like
I
perfectly
gotcha.
into that mindset. But then you want something more flowy. Then if you're used to the militaristic discipline, then maybe you
Mm.
need to balance it another way. So it
I
kind of
hear you. It
depends on.
depends. It depends on the person. I feel like most jujitsu people are gonna gravitate towards the vinyasa because they love all the jujitsu people love the flowing and movements, and so that's awesome. Thank you for that. I'm definitely gonna look into all those things for myself. And then some of the questions, I got about 4 questions. The first one's actually from Jacqueline Grace from our group. She actually owns Melita Yoga out east. And she asked, since your studio has gone virtual, have you seen more people sign up since, I guess with her, I guess they're offering a lower rate because it's not in person anymore. So have you seen more people signing up now that it's a lower rate? And, kind of what's your thoughts on that?
So I actually did not lower my rate
Uh,
because I do have to pay for a very high Main Street rent. I am
I
still
gotcha.
100% responsible for my space.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is something that I know part of the challenge for everyone in my boat is precisely that. When
Yeah.
so much yoga is available online for almost nothing,
Hmm.
or nothing,
Yeah.
really, the undervaluing of our services also was an issue. It's a
Yeah.
major issue. And I just made the decision, well, I have a very good new student special. So anybody who's not been to the studio, they could sign on for 3 weeks and do unlimited yoga virtually for $30. So
Wow.
my
Oh,
special
okay.
is 3 weeks for $30. Anybody could come in for that. What
Hmm.
what I've seen was like not a ton of new people coming in. What I
Hmm.
have is my very, stalwart community who like loves me and wants to support me and keep me around. So they've been continuing with their monthly packages and their regular price packages.
Gotcha.
My pricing,
Gotcha.
but I haven't seen, it's not like a ton of new people and new energy is coming in. But I have heard from other people who have done those like deep discounted prices that they see a bunch of people, new energy coming in. It's just that how many new people in order to pay rent that they're not really able to make
Yeah.
it,
Yeah. I
just
guess when
yet.
you're
So
paying, yeah,
a
when you're
lot
paying
of the
rent, it's
studios
a different animal.
are being
Yeah.
right. So it's like anybody, if you're going to move to a purely online platform, then those lower price points make sense because then you're always going to be virtual and then you can just basically do it from wherever you are as long as you have a good camera and you have a good Wi-Fi connection, then you're good to go. So I think that that's a question for all of us business owners, especially with yoga, because we don't know when it's going to come back. I'm maintaining my regular price structure, so that.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that makes sense. How are you? I know the Bayshore islip community, Brightwaters, is really strong, which is awesome. But how are you guys like staying engaged with everybody? Is it social media? Is it email? What are you seeing most of?
Well, what's funny is that it's like, so social media kind of in the sense of like, there's people commenting and we have like a robust Facebook community and like
Hmm.
Instagram, and we'll get some messages here and there, people liking and commenting and tagging stuff, which has been sweet.
Yeah.
But really it's the live classes, like the Brady Bunch, squares. We just talk.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's like, hey, it's like we just see everybody. Like we've been showing up to class. So people
Awesome.
have been coming in, signing into class a few minutes early, and we chat
Mhm.
and see how everybody's feeling. And then I mute everybody during the class and we hide them for, during the time. And then at the end of class, we open back up and see how everybody's feeling and if anybody has questions. So it's been very sweet. We've been
Okay.
able
Cool.
to maintain kind of personal connection, but then also through email. I have received some really wonderful, thoughtful, some texts and emails from people. So we've been
Mm,
staying connected that way. Social media is there, like
mm.
I think for the people who are on Facebook, we have a lot of elders in our community too, and they're like not down with the social media thing.
Yeah.
So it's been email, it's been a phone call. So
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
Yeah, and listen, I know we did 20 minutes already, but I really want to get to these next three questions. Is that okay?
Of course. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So the next one is from actually a friend of mine. He's in the Facebook group as well, Jeff Morales, and he owns Box of Dreams Photography. He asked me that his wife is 7 months pregnant. And I thought it was interesting because you mentioned pregnancy before. His wife is 7 months pregnant and is suffering suffering from some back pain and shortness of breath. Do you have any like yoga suggestions for her?
So for one, she should come in for a class. I still offer prenatal on Sundays at 10:30. So it's a
Okay.
virtual class with some modification with like household props. We can definitely get into some propping. But so if she can't, if she can come in for a regular class, I have a couple of recordings that I could even send, so we could certainly connect.
Okay.
But really basic daytime stuff in terms of back pain. But, pregnancy back pain is unfortunately like, it's like, you know, or if you're pregnant, your back hurts, you know, it's like, there's a part of that, but
Mhm.
some of the, making sure, you know, how you sit, how you stand, that's a part of just addressing the overall ability to stay like out of that exaggerated lumbar curve, because that's really what happens mostly. So if she's doing a lot of sitting, to make sure that she's not like sitting all the way back in the chair, like kind of sitting towards the edge and trying to keep, you know, upright and more of an upright presentation. If she's standing a lot, to try to take breaks to stretch a little bit
Mhm.
throughout the day, because you know, there's, again, depending on what her regular thing is, like to be able to just stretch out those long muscles. I'll even turn and show you one, because then, you know, she's going to watch this. It's something that we can do.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and this is good for anybody with like low back pain too, but particularly for pregnant women, because if they can't do that whole downward dog, like downward facing dog is really the best for anybody. But if you
Yeah.
and just kind of walk a little bit back, micro bend the knees, and then just go to a place where you feel like there's a stretch, but keep tucking the tailbone under, and then push the floor away. And just breathe like that for, you know, a few counts, and then coming, you know, kind of coming up and taking those times to just kind of
Okay.
stretch, move a few times a day is really going to help. And then certainly like sitting, you know, not sitting right at the not collapsing into the edge. Couches are like, unfortunately, the worst thing that we could do for
Mhm.
our back ever.
Uh,
Maybe sitting like on a Pilates ball instead of sitting on the couch, so that you can kind of keep moving some of that energy around. I know,
yeah.
like you could be used those big blue, you know, Pilates balls that they can
Mhm.
be used when you're in. So instead of like sitting, you know, and to be able to sit and kind of move and keep the energy in the pelvis really open and open up the lower back, it should help a lot. But, you know, send
Awesome.
her on to the prenatal classes too,
Okay.
and there's probably stuff that she can find online also, just
Mhm.
like little yoga sequences, but
Yeah.
and try to stay as comfortable as possible. Being 7 months pregnant is unfortunately a
It's tough. It's
not
tough.
a cool situation for most of our backs, you know, so.
Yeah, yeah, and I know what you mean about that couch too. That couch gets me on the weekends sometimes.
Really the worst. I said, like,
Yeah.
my car coach, she's like, if everybody would just get rid of their couch and start doing yoga, you
Oh
know,
my
like,
God.
out of a job. I was like, I
Yeah.
know.
Anytime I pass out on the couch, I wake up, my neck hurts, my back hurts. I'm like, why do I do this to myself? So the next question, I think that was awesome, by the way. I'll definitely pass that on to Jeff. Then I'll post this in the Facebook group so, you know, the people can see it. So the next question is from our group again, Celia Werner. She asked, do you have a certain yoga style that you personally like best?
Hatha yoga is it's not just my bread and butter. It's the one that really, it speaks to me the most deeply,
Mhm.
because of its holistic kind of approach to everything.
Okay.
I've tried basically all the styles of yoga that are available, and I've really gone into them somewhat deeply, because I wanted to see, you know, what was you can't really just get the flavor of a particular style unless you practice it, you know, fairly regularly, or at least a few more classes than just one or two. You know, you have to kind of give it some time. Hatha yoga consistently I come back to, because it is the most stabilizing but also invigorating. It's like I can build strength but also gain flexibility. I get grounded in my sense of myself in terms of my body, but I'm also able to then, with the meditation, transcend the body and start to really feel myself as something much greater than what this is. The overall philosophy, as I was taught, my trainings were very traditional, that I came from Integral Yoga and Dharma Mitra, which are both hatha based lineages. So that was really, it's interwoven into the
Yeah.
being who I am as a yoga teacher. So hatha is, for me, that's the most, I have found the most holistic approach to the
Very cool.
spiritual, the physical, and the emotional, psychological components of things. I really,
Very, very cool. Cool. And she had a second part to the question. She wanted to know too, what breathing exercise would you recommend for most people that are, you know, stuck at home to, you know, help calm them down or whatever the case may be?
yeah, alternate nostril breathing, nadi sudi, is a
Ooh.
really powerful practice. And it's like one of those practices that there's like levels of it. When you start as a beginner, you do it without breath retention, and then you go all the way up into the more advanced levels where you're holding the breath and engaging different physical locks in the body so that you can go even, deeper. But you can most likely, I don't want to say YouTube, there's probably, and I think even on my Facebook page, when the shutdown first happened, that I did a pranayama video that was like 20 minutes long that showed like 3 different breathing techniques to do together that anybody can do, that beginners can do. And Nadi Sudi is on there. It's the alternate nostril breathing. But you could easily find, I'll see if I can repost, because, things get pushed down on the page. So if I pin it up, people can find it again. And I'll be able to even send you that link, and then you could put it into the Facebook page too, or we can,
for
put
sure.
it in there.
For sure.
Alternate nostril breathing, what it does is that specifically it balances the energy of the right and left sides of the brain. And when we are like out of control with our thoughts and our mind is like struggling and we're trying to grasp, or emotionally we're very disturbed, it's like, oh, I can't think about anything at all because I'm inhaling, switching, and exhaling. Inhale, switch, exhale. Oh, and now I'm going to count. Inhale to the count of 3, switch, exhale to the count of 6. Inhale to the count of 3, switch, exhale to the count of 6. By working with the mind that way, giving it something to do by the counting, paying attention to actually extending the exhales, we're working with the vagus nerve, which is also deeply like healing, and we're moving ourselves into more of a rest and digest, that parasympathetic nervous system response. So that's where all the healing really happens. It's a really great practice. 5 minutes a day for, a couple of weeks, like just doing it at that baseline level will give you kind of a nice, like even keelness. You increase it over time because you have to build up, your body with what you can tolerate. But 5 minutes a day of alternate breathing is a really great place to start.
Oh man, I have my work cut out for me after this podcast. There's so many things I want to try now.
A lot of things. Extended interview.
All right. So so this is the last one. Ari, who's also in the Facebook group, and he's really into yoga. I know he's done like yoga retreats overseas and stuff like that. So he's really into this stuff. And you actually already answered his first question, but his other question was, how do you feel about all the other different newer types of yoga that have popped up? So for example, he said hot yoga, aqua yoga, and he even mentioned naked yoga. So what's your thoughts on that?
There's like my official answer, which is that I think that there's room for like everything, because human nature and what it is kind of creative, and the way that we kind of expand and explore things is, I think there's a place for all of it. And then on the other side of that, I think that there's also, when something's tried and true and it's ancient, like why mess with that? So
yeah, I like that.
I kind of feel from myself personally that the trends of doing a lot of things, just to do the sake of something different is not, it's not the way of my heart with yoga, certainly. I think that again, it really does depend on the practitioner and the individual person. I think that any practice of any kind of yoga, when it's done with intention, can be healing. So, who am I to say what yoga is like, relevant or not? And I try to also hold that space of like not gossiping. And I also then just know I have seen like injuries and egos and things.
People take advantage of a trend. Yeah.
And then there's like, the whole Bikram thing. I mean, Bikram is a predator. It's like, and the fact that our culture like elevated a predator to that degree because some ridiculous, like, 105 degrees and doing these things. It's like, why? I mean, for me personally, also I'm an environmentalist and I'm an activist that way. Like, it's artificial increasing the temperature. Your carbon footprint is going up through the roof to keep this heating system at this ridiculous level for all of this time, for all of these places. Like, our yoga practice should not be like increasing our carbon footprint. It's like we also want to see it as like thing. So I just feel like there's a lot of unsustainable, things that are going on. And like my heating bill is already crazy. I couldn't imagine if it was jacked up to 105,
Yeah, right.
So you have to then pack boxes in order to justify that. And then the amount of money that is going through, and then it just feels like it's sustainable with where we are. And also now thinking about the environment, the health and hygiene of things, it's like, I don't see how, hot rooms are going to be accessible again. Like, it just feels like there's a lot of things that are coming through, that the change is going to sweep through, and that it's not just, it's affecting all of us, so there are things that we have to decide now, so all these different styles. I think, again, human nature is creative and we want to come up with these things, and I think it's fine. And at the same time, like, I've seen a lot of hatha yoga for me has never injured me. It's like I had a few moments of like where in the beginning where I was kind of like, oh, I want to push, let me see if I can do something. And then I strained and was like, oh, that was, but overall, I feel like the other styles of yoga, as long as the person, the practitioner is hearing the messages of peace, as long as they're hearing messages of compassion towards themselves, as long as they're receiving, connection to their own body and their own breath, and that it's okay, so that's my 2 cents anyway.
Awesome. I loved it. And no, yeah, that was great. And I love the ancient acts. I don't know why I just lost my train of thought, but I love the ancient aspect of it. So, no, I think that's awesome. And listen, I appreciate you taking the extra time to go over all those questions with me. And thank you so much for doing this. It was funny. Some people in the Bayshore Facebook group, they actually commented on a couple of the posts from other podcasts I did. And they were like, you should have Gina on from, Barefoot Yoga. I was like, oh my God, I have to reach out. So you had some requests. It seems like you have some fan base out there.
That's great.
Yeah. So thanks again for doing this. I really appreciate it. Okay, awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Gina. Take care.
Well, take care.